Hello and welcome back to the second part of our discussion between the Bush Whisperer and Tall Tree. I'm Franklin. Tall Tree is Jeremy, and we're going to be taking us on an adventure. I'm not quite sure what Jeremy's got planned for us today. We're going to see where this goes. Jeremy, as you know, is a member of the Roundtable panel discussion, a very inspired, shamanically inspired, martial arts inspired, philosophically inspired, and he's a father, down to earth, getting on with the day to day, as are we all. Without any more words, dear Jeremy, Om Shanti, much love, brother.
Hey Franklin, welcome everybody back to our show, our conversation. So to get right into it, we left off last week, right when you had been beckoned to go into the woods and summon some creatures, and one of those animals was a scorpion that you had brought back home with you, and you went to go show your mother, and your mother became afraid of the scorpion, and I think smacked it out of your hand, and also imparted to you, in the same moment, that fear that she was feeling, which was a new experience for you. And that was this point in your life where your guides left you for a time. And I think you said that you were around like 7 years old. And so, no, you were not 7.
I was 5.
You were 5. Okay, you were 5. So yeah, that's where we were, and I guess we could talk a little bit about this new thing, this new fear that you were experiencing, and how did that help you in the preceding years? What did that do for you?
Help me. That's an interesting question. I don't think it helped me in any way. As much as a hole in the head can help one think, I would say that's how much it helped me. I don't think fear is a helpful thing, but I think it's a generational karmic package, a download that is necessary. In the Bible, it is spoken of how the sins of the parents become the sins of the children. So we inherit our parents' disposition through upbringing, through conditioning, through genetics, both genotypically and phenotypically. We inherit our parents' nonsense and gifts. And that was just a part of the nonsense package I needed to download in order to process it. What it did for me in my life was it caused me to become angry, because that was how I had learned to deal with fear as a child. From that point on, I became angry by a fear, angry at being afraid, and that anger made me irrational and rash, and so I would run towards fear. In an almost example, Llandudno was a place that I used to go. Now, Llandudno was just over the hill, and my mom had moved to Llandudno. And when I was 7 years old, I used to go out to Llandudno on my own with a boogie board, no adults, and I used to paddle far out. It's about 100 meters to the back of the breakers, because it's a deep water wave, Atlantic Ocean, fast, and ride 3-meter swells that were closing out, which could have killed me. And as a 7-year-old, that's like pretty intense. And I did get unconscious and knocked out and had to have my life saved a number of times by the surfers. And the surface thought I had a death wish because there were times when they were too scared to go out because it was too rough. And I'd laugh at them and I'd tease them and say, "Oh, well, you guys all scared." And I'd go out into that water and they'd be like shouting, waving, like, "You can't go out." And I'd go out because the idea of being afraid made me angry and I wanted to go and beat this fear up. So it caused a lot of that kind of reaction in me, which is very martial, very Mars oriented. Whether it is healthy or not, I don't think it's healthy, but I suppose it serves a purpose.
Yeah. Well, that sounds insane. It's 7 years old. I think when I was 7, I had just moved from, was it Pennsylvania, someplace in the middle of Pennsylvania to Michigan, out in the country in Michigan, and to start the majority of my childhood out in the country there. Definitely not. I definitely wasn't taking risks in the ocean like you were, though. Although I did throughout that time spend quite a lot of time on my rooftop at night, and also like riding my bicycle around the country roads at nighttime. There was just infinite freedom at night, because I'm out in the country and there's not a ton of people, and if there was like a car or something, I could always tell by looking at the was it the telephone lines? You would see the light change. I perfected being able to just ride my bike like straight into the ditch and just like lying there until the car passed. And yeah, I didn't have any fear of like the dark or woods or anything like that. It was actually really, really comforting. And I do remember, this is like, I remember one time I was on my roof, because I would go up there and I'd just like hang out and like watch stars or listen to music or something like that. But I was up there one night and I pretty much knew every sound that there was to hear. There was like the bugs and some birds and maybe a raccoon or dogs or the animals or something like that. And I remember hearing this sound that I had never heard before, and I was freaked out. That was really weird. It was almost like a beep, like a beeping. So strange. But anyways, so what other things that were going on in your life around this time, that you could see were leading you towards the shamanic life?
At that point, I had sort of repressed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The guides leaving me was like a closing of my perception. Like the doors of my mind went closed. Not completely closed. I could still tell what people were thinking. I could still tell what people's intentions were. I could still sense things like what the weather would do or what would happen. Like I still had an instinct, but I wasn't like in this cosmic soup of, wow, this universe is talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I developed issues with my mom. I had real problems with my mom then. I remember being really sad because I never felt I got the emotion or succor I desired.
You mean like
And
you're talking about like your mom's like nurturing, like your mom's love?
yeah, I just felt that. And I mean, my mom did a lot for me, and she was a single mom, and she was, it wasn't easy for her.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like 1980, early 80s.
Hmm.
So, it was a different world. And I mean, I was really lucky because, like I say, between 6 and 7 year old time, I was like getting to connect with the sea. We were living at Llandudno, which is like probably one of the nicest places to live.
This is in South Africa.
Um, yeah. It's quite a special place, you know.
Yeah.
Um, you pay millions for a house out there, so I wouldn't be able to afford, you know, and nor would my mom. But she was lucky because somebody was renting a top floor, this huge, beautiful apartment to her, and so we lived in Llandudno, which is a very sort of like posh kind of place to live,
Yeah.
and so I was lucky. And then my mom, after that, we we moved and we stayed in Rondebosch, and I suppose things changed for me. Um, I was still between my father and my mum. At first, I was staying with my father, but my father would let me spend a lot of time with my mom at my mom's. So I was bouncing between my father and my mum. And then after the court case, my father had won um, custody of me, even though he had kidnapped me.
Yeah.
So he
Basically,
kidnapped me and took
I mean,
what?
to save your life, he kidnapped you.
Well, in those days, fathers didn't have any rights,
Yeah.
and he wasn't married to my mom, so he had no rights.
Yeah.
I mean, these days it's different, but so yeah, he won custody of me, and I'd always felt there was this disconnect between my mom and myself because my father had taken me away from my mom, and there'd been like a time of bonding that was missing,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I could feel there was something missing with my mom, and I wanted to live with her. I wanted to connect with my mom. I felt like there was something there that I needed to. I was drawn, so I ended up going to stay with my mom, and that was when I was 9 years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I had a lot of issues with my mom. We only really came to terms with things when I was an adult,
Mhm.
because my teenage years were quite crazy.
How so?
I was well in junior school. A lot of the other kids were scared of me.
Yeah.
And so, like I told you, I hospitalized that boy on the first day of school,
Yeah.
and then after that, some of the children like thought I was like their hero or whatever, and a lot of the other children were like intimidated by me. So I wasn't allowed to get into a fight. They were going to expel me. So I made a promise. Now, what I'd learned from my father is like you honor your word. My dad was who was my dad? Gosh, my dad was the Cape Town hero. Like he was literally a hero, like in the newspapers.
For what?
Um, so that's who my dad was, and like he had saved a lot of people's lives.
Okay.
And you speak about South Africa. We weren't allowed out at night in South Africa. There were curfews,
Oh.
and it was a racist place. And there wasn't people to stand up for people of color. It was somebody like my father that would do it. And you had like, um, Like I remember seeing groups of Afrikaners that used to go around and want to like beat up African people and stuff, or and crime and everything. South Africa was quite intense, so there was curfews. It was like I grew up in a state of martial law. That was just the norm. You weren't allowed in the street after 8 p.m. Or was it 8:30? 8 or 8:30 p.m. was curfew time. No one was allowed on the streets. Just as an example.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I had promised I wouldn't get into another fight, and I'd shaken my headmaster's. He had still tried to tell me about Ritalin. I said to him, I will never ever take that. You will never get me to take it.
Yeah.
And he was trying to talk to my mom. I said, it doesn't matter what my mom says. I will not take it. And if you don't like that, I will get my father and he'll come and sort this out. There's no way I'm taking your drugs. That's what I said. I looked him in the eye. He was shocked because I was 9 years old. And I told him, there's no ways I will ever take this crap. There's nothing wrong with me. That boy was a bully and he got what was coming to him. That was my official story. But like that being said, I'll agree to not get into another fight. And so this big group of boys used to then want to like try and stir me into a fight.
Yeah.
And so they'd want to like mess with me. So I'd go around the school to meet them. And I'd let them beat me up every day for about 2 or 3 years. And I saw it as an opportunity to meditate and learn to become tough and hard and strong, because I wanted to be the strongest, hardest, toughest mother on the block. Because my dad was the strongest, hardest, toughest mother on the block.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to be like my dad. I witnessed my father with a circle of men around him, 10, 12 men, high-level gangsters in an organized crime syndicate, dancing, throwing their knives and catching their knives and dancing all fancy, a big circle around him. And he's one man and he wiped the floor with all of them. Those that survived were in intensive care. Those that survived. So that was my dad. These were people that had murdered a man of color in front of my eyes, because the crime lord had said, and the guy took out a knife and stabbed him on the heart. And that was the man who used to look after me. And this was a very fancy hotel where this gang of organized crime, they were called the Ugly Americans. There was like some crime lord there, like a big table, woman sitting on his lap, like four-course meals, bow ties and silk overlays tables. And it was a 4-star place. My dad was a performing musician. He was playing music there, and they murdered him in front of a whole hotel full of people, families. So my dad walked up to me and said, there's not a man amongst you. You're a bunch of little wimps. Why don't you meet me in the parking lot and I'll show you the wrath of God? And they walked out laughing at him, and they made a big circle around him, and he showed them the wrath of God. I ran to stand next to my father in that fight. I ran into the circle to try and defend my father. There was I've never seen so much blood in my life. The whole circle was covered in blood. So anyway, so my dad basically took them out of the hotel to protect all the women and the families and everybody in the hotel into the parking lot alone. Not a single man in that whole hotel would back him up. Like I say, a hero. So I felt this desire to be like my father, the supreme alpha male, the one that sacrifices himself for the group. And so I needed to be the strongest and the toughest. So I saw this as an opportunity for training, to take my boxing to the next level. And then I discovered martial arts. And that became my life. And that's what took me into meditation. Yeah.
Do you remember? I'm curious. Do you remember? So it was karate you got into, right?
I went for one class of judo.
Oh, judo.
So I've got a senior grade in judo.
Right. How do you remember how you discovered judo? Were you just curious? You heard about it?
No, it was recommended to me by the headmaster because I had hospitalized a boy.
Okay,
And he
gotcha.
was like, "This is judo teacher, it'd be good for him." So I went for one class. It was a grading, and I then had this ridiculously high grade, and all the other children were jealous of me because I was now like the second most senior person in the class, and the other children had been training for like 3-4 years, and that was their senior grade, and they didn't like that. And he thought I had a teacher.
Right.
He thought I'd been training before, and then he wanted to meet my teacher, and he harassed me and harassed me and harassed me and harassed me for like 6 months. And I kept saying, "There's no teacher." And I couldn't explain to him that, like, I used to dream this. This is my dreams. This is my, like, I lived in another life. That's why I know this. There's somewhere else I learned this, not here. So, because I used to dream my life in Japan over and over again,
Yeah.
where I was a general, samurai, shogun. So, that I only went for that one class, and I never went back because it seemed ridiculous to me. I was like, this is too easy. How can I be a senior grade already? And then I went to train with one guy, and I didn't like him. He was trying to hit on my mom, and he was like nasty to the other men. He was a bully. And I was like, I remember saying to my mom, like, my dad would give that guy a hiding. That's the kind of guy my dad would give a hiding. He's a bully. My dad doesn't like bullies. My dad knows what to do with bullies. So I didn't like him. And then I heard about Hombu Dojo, which was the best dojo in the best Japanese dojo. It was the premier Western dojo in the world of authentic Japanese dojo
In South Africa.
Cavendish Square.
Yeah.
Hey?
In South
What?
Africa.
Yeah, it was in Cape Town.
Cape Town, yeah.
And let's see if I can get pictures of it.
Yeah.
Honbu Dojo. I don't know if because they closed down. Chris Thompson closed down.
So how old were you when you went there to start training?
I was like 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just when I was starting high school. I started training in Shotokan, JKA first.
What is
And I
that?
trained with that other guy. That guy who I said was an idiot. And
Yeah.
I trained with him for a while, but I didn't feel a connection. And then when I went to Hombu Dojo, there was a Shihan there. Don't know if you know what a Shihan is.
No, can you explain?
So a senpai is a senior, a sensei is a teacher, a Shihan is a master. It's a
Okay.
grandmaster. And at that time, there were only 9 grandmasters in the Western world. And a grandmaster means you've learned how to manipulate occult force.
This is
Your
judo.
chi. Karate.
Karate. Okay.
Yeah. So that means that you can use your ki.
Your
If you're a
chi.
grandmaster. Yeah. It's called ki in Japanese, but ki, same thing. So he could project his ki at a distance. He could break something outside of his body with his mind power. Yeah. Like I say, a master.
So something that's here and he's here and he can project chi.
Yeah, he can punch it and have his punch far away from it, and it would break.
Gotcha. Have you seen this?
Yeah, it wasn't something he did, but I was invited to come to the. So I started martial arts, and immediately I'm invited to come to the classes with the sensei. But I'm a little boy, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Because everybody's got like third dans and second dans and fourth dans, and all of those. Those are the guys that are learning. And he was teaching classes about ki.
Right.
And those are the classes I was invited to come to learn to meditate. And because he noticed me immediately.
Right.
and he sat me down and he asked me questions. He said, the spirit is very strong in you. That's what he said to me. He said, I want you to come to this class.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything of it. And like my peers I was training with, they were all jealous. They were like, why are you going to that class? It's like the sensei's class. I was, I don't know. But that's when I learned to meditate, to focus and to channel and to breathe and to get into the energy. He was the first master I came in contact with. He was the first man that my ESP had awoken then as well at that time, reawoken.
I mean, your guides came back?
Yeah. And a whole host of extra dimensional activity and entities and all sorts of stuff. And I realized I could channel entities.
Yeah. Do you remember, was there a moment like when it was like, was it in the class?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No, it happened. I think the martial arts came about because of that. Because I had a friend, Colvin, and his older cousins were like 15, 16, 17, whatever. And they had a group of people and they were playing glassy Ouija board.
A what?
Ouija board.
Oh, a Ouija.
Glassy.
Okay. With the little thing that you move around.
Yeah, with a glass and it goes round and all of that. And
are those things legit?
Well, I walked in. The moment I came there and I arrived, this thing went crazy. I would spell my name, number 2, medium, spell my name, number 2, medium, spell my name, number 2, medium. And they were like, what's going on here? And then suddenly things got like really intense. Like the spirits would tell them, like, your phone's going to ring and it's going to be so-and-so. And they're going to be doing this and this and this and this. And that's what's happened. And the phone would ring and it was so-and-so and this. And it was becoming like a big deal for them. It was like really interesting. And look, it was fun. And I noticed that I could control that thing with my thoughts. I could will it to go to a letter if I wanted to. I was like, that's interesting. Why can I make it go where I wanted to?
With no one
even if I wasn't,
the glass.
Even if I was or wasn't touching.
Yeah.
And then it started getting real. Things got thrown around the room. Doors were getting slammed. You get up to leave the room and the door would open in front of you. And as you take a step, it would slam in front of you. And bottles and cups and stuff were thrown across the room. Like we're sitting here and that thing would just lift up in the air and just go flying. And one of the women was like experiencing some trauma of being psychically attacked and something was trying to rape her. And everybody was scared, really scared. And I was the only one that wasn't scared. I thought this was hilarious. I thought like, oh, this is funny. Like, I wasn't that scared of like much stuff conventionally when I was young, you know, just spiritual psychic entities have never really scared me. And so it was getting to the point where everybody was so freaked out. They couldn't go to school. They couldn't do anything. They didn't want to play Ouija board anymore, but things were happening around them and they would have to go onto the Ouija board to find out, like, why is this happening? And so we were all sleeping in that room together because they were scared. They didn't want me to go away. Because, like, while we were there, these entities were saying that I'm a medium and like it was talking about all sorts of stuff about me. I didn't really understand everything that was being said at the time. Something about my heritage and like where I come from and all of that. And that I had a body that I could materialize things. And one of the spirits came through.
What does that mean?
Well, I was told soon after this, I met older gentlemen that explained to me that I had a materializing body type. It's a particular kind of a body type.
Okay.
And because I'd noticed, like, I could project my key. Like, things had happened. We were playing with a friend of mine, and he came at me, throwing punches at me, and I hit him and lifted him off his feet, and like 8 to 10 feet across the room, off 7 feet off the ground, he hit the wall and bounced off the wall and bounced back. And I was like shouldn't be possible, because he was a bigger guy than me. You shouldn't hit someone that they lift off their feet and fly across the room. And like, there was electricity when I hit him. And I noticed that when I was in the ring and I was fighting, I would just touch somebody with a toe, but I'd feel this crack of electricity between me and them, and they'd be hospitalized. So when I got in I started training, and in martial arts, like, within a few months I was provincial. Within like 6 to 8 months I was South African championships. Within like a year of training, I was like a protege in South African, like, top fighters. But I hospitalized a lot of guys in the ring. And
is any of this recorded? Like, you can look it up?
I don't know. This was many years ago. It was before the internet.
Right.
So I don't know. But it happened a lot.
Yeah.
Like, people would basically be unconscious for long, and I'd have to sit with my back to them, facing the corner, for like 10-15 minutes, until they finally got carried out of the place with the stretchers. And so it happened a lot. And it's one of the reasons I stopped training, stopped competing, because I thought maybe I'll kill someone. But I wasn't making contact. It was like I was just touching them, but there was an electrical shock that happened between me and them that caused the problems that I would always feel. So I knew it was my key that was doing it. And then in street fights as well, I hospitalized quite a lot of guys, because I was like a small guy, and if I saw like big guys causing trouble with a little guy, I'd go and say, "What's wrong?" And I was funny. I could make everybody laugh at them, and then they'd take a swing at me, and I'd hit him, and same story. He's still lying on the side of the road. I've got to run away. All my friends are coming to give me updates. Like, no, he's still lying there. Now the police are there. Now there's an ambulance. Now he's got off to a hospital. Nobody knows who did it, because it happened so quickly, And so that happened a number of times. And if I drank, I might hospitalize someone in the night if something like that happened, because I was really cocky. And I would tease the big guys. And I was like 15. And so these like 23 or 24-year-old big bodybuilder guys, and I'd make fun out of them. Because I'd be like, "You can't throw a punch, mate. You're a weed. Look at those pins. Look at those calves. Did you understand the weakest link in a chain, man? You can't throw a punch." Well, what are you doing, like, talking like you're a big shot? You should get a leotard or a dress or something. And I was like really cheeky. I was a cheeky little 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But I was like an alpha in my school, an all boys school. So anyway, I'm getting off track here. But that's like the key that I'd learned to feel. Now that it started because in that situation, we were sleeping, and I would wake up screaming at night, and there was just white light, fire burning through me. And it happened a lot. And it was like some kind of an awakening. And I'd wake up screaming in the night. Everybody would be like, "What's wrong?" I'd be, "Nothing. I was just being burnt by like the sun." Felt like I was in the middle of the sun. And there was this white fire burning through me everywhere. It was like a little scary. Like just white light, that was so intense that it's like you just wake up screaming from it. And Then an entity came to talk to me and explain to me that I can actually fix this whole situation. All I got to do is this, 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 and this, and this. I was like, really? So I did it, and that was the end of it. I had taken those entities and I'd put them somewhere else, and I'd sealed the space the way they told me to do it. And then I noticed that the entities that I'd spoken to, I could communicate with them telepathically. And then I noticed, hold on, there are a lot of entities I can talk to telepathically. And then I learned how to talk to beings. And then martial arts came up, sort of like the next, like almost same time. And so my energy had reawoken from my childhood after being like asleep for 7 years.
Do you remember what did you do to like close that?
6 years. Very easy. I just had to sense all the beings and sense the one and grab him in my mind and open up like a portal and push him through that portal and close the portal and seal it up with a spiral until it became back to like the way everything else was in the background. And so I could take beings and open up like make a hole, pop him through the hole and close the hole, and that was all.
So that's super interesting. I feel like there is this. So the baseline human being on the earth, there are like we're a lot more. I feel like we're a lot more powerful than we think or that we know, as far as intuition and being able to sense things, especially like being able to, figure out other people's intentions. It's not necessarily telepathic. We can get a sense for, the weather and where things are. And it's just the way it's just the way that humans are. But whatever, nowadays, like right now, 2024, we've got a lot of things that work on us to get us to kind of forget these things or how to access these things or how to develop chi. Like you can say that you could like blame the phone, right, for influencing in certain ways, but you're still the one that picks it up and looks at it. I mean, it does act on certain areas of your brain that release chemicals that it's like, oh, I want to pick it up and I want to look at it. And these distractions kind of take away from our innate ability to do certain things. And then there's this next level, which is kind of like what you just described, where it's like you're opening portals, you're grabbing entities, you're fucking shoving them back through the hole and closing it up. And then, things are like a little more calm. This idea of the grandmaster that you brought up, it actually it kind of reminds me of like these martial arts movies that you watch. They're fighting each other, and the hero, he punches a guy, and the guy goes flying, right? And we kind of, I guess, in the West here, we're like, oh, that's like an action movie. That's a martial arts movie. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a little, what do you call it? You know, it's, I can't, I'm losing the word here, but it's, you know, it's more than real for us to watch and be like, wow. But what you're talking about is like, well, no, that's a accurate representation of a master manipulating the chi to send that guy flying. And it really adds, if you know, if that's real and it's true, I haven't witnessed it. It really adds a whole new dimension to human history. Because if you got these guys, I mean, I'm thinking that, you know, there were probably many more grandmasters in the past, you know, influencing things and maybe fighting wars and all this sort of stuff. And you know, it's like how deep does it go? How powerful does it get? You know. So when you were grabbing this entity and opening this portal, was that like the first time that you had done something like this
In this life, yes.
in this life? Yeah. And I mean, how did you feel about it? How did you feel about that? Was that like really? You're like, whoa, this is like a thing I can do now?
It reminded me of my childhood.
Yeah.
Only I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me sort of start to question everything that happened to me when I was young. And I never spoke to anyone about the stuff that happened to me when I was young because I'd been called the devil's child, and so I kept it a secret.
Yeah.
I bottled it all up. I didn't tell people that I drowned. I didn't tell people about that I was called devil's child. I just wanted to be normal, or just be like, you know. And I used to hide behind humor. I was always taking the piss. I was always on the crack, as they say in Ireland. And so I actually didn't really. I was a lot more intrigued by the fact that I could communicate with these beings, and that there were a lot of other beings out there. And then I met an elderly gentleman who I became sort of connected to through someone I'd known. It was his father, and he connected me to others. And these were guys who were part of mystery schools as I got to know them. And they were like, well, you should look at this. You should look at this. You should come here to this place. There's this talk on philosophy here with this small group of people. I was like, who are these people? Where am I? You know? And so I started getting brought into sort of a fold of a cult. And I discovered the occult, and I was like, oh my flipping heck. Finally, people that understand like what I know. I thought it had just happened to me, like that there was no all this other stuff, supernatural stuff from childhood was just I didn't know a context for it. Coming from a very Christianized background, like what is it? You know,
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with me? Am I like the beast or something? What's wrong with me? You know?
Yeah.
And because that's what people thought I was.
Right.
And that's what they called me, and I wasn't allowed to play with the other children. I was ostracized and all of that.
Yeah.
So, and it's quite heavy being called devil's cunt, the devil's child. And adults were scared of me, and that was very weird. They couldn't look into my eyes. They'd cross to the other side of the road if I was walking. Literally.
Yeah.
I could play with them. If they were crossing, I'd start crossing, then they'd like waver in the road, not knowing which side to walk on. I'd be like,
oh my
I was
God.
a cheeky kid, man.
Yeah. Hey, so
I
you bring up something interesting. you mentioned that your dad was Christian,
Yeah,
and he
gospel
took
musician.
yeah, and so he took you to exorcisms,
No, the priests came to our home.
right? Because your dad asked them to
Yeah,
come, right? So
yeah. He probably paid money.
what's that?
He probably paid money because it was Catholics.
Okay, yeah.
Everything costs money in the Catholic Church. Don't you have to pay money to be absolved of your sins?
I'm not Catholic.
I believe that's how it works.
Yeah, maybe.
There was always
Um,
money changing hands with the Catholic Church. I remember that.
yeah,
I mean, I didn't understand. I was a little boy, but my dad was always giving them money.
yeah. Was there was there a point? I mean, was there a point where your dad just like accepted that you were this different kid, or was there like a lot? Was there tension there? I mean, did your dad like ask you about like what are you doing?
My dad, my dad and me had like an amazing relationship.
Yeah,
I had explained to him by a certain point, like, Dad, I'm not scared. Don't worry. It's like I'm safe. And I'd explained to him about my leprechaun friends who would come and dance, and there was like quite a lot for him. But he came from an Irish background, so he understood something about this, even though it like he was a bit freaked out by it. But he sort of accepted it in the end.
yeah,
And like my dad was more proud of me than I've ever seen any father being of any son. So I was like really lucky,
mhm.
really lucky. Like I remember sparring with my dad when I was 16. Bless you. And
Sorry,
my dad reckoned I was the best fighter he'd ever sparred with. That was like a supreme compliment because my dad was pro.
he was a boxer.
He never boxed to compete. He was a trainer, but he came from a family of boxers. And the heavyweight boxing champion in the family, my dad kicked his ass in a street fight. So my dad had become a street fighter
Yeah,
from a boxing family where he was gifted as a boxer, but his mother wouldn't let him compete because she said he was very clever. He had a good brain on him. So she didn't want him to lose his mental acuity in boxing. But he became a fighter. And I mean, even one of his uncles was a second or third Dan. And he tried to give my dad a few smacks one day when he was 16 or 17. And my dad took off his belt.
Hmm. I think you.
It popped off for a moment.
Oh yeah, we're back now. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
saying that.
so like I think I was saying to you that one of his uncles was a second Dan karate, and he
Yeah.
tried to give him a hiding when he was 16 or 17, and my dad took off his belt and gave him a hiding with his belt.
Yeah.
My dad was crazy.
Yeah.
He had a big belt buckle,
Sounds like
and the guy
you're
was like lying on the
first
ground crying, begging him to stop.
yeah. So are you there? Because I feel like I paused for a second.
Okay, I've switched internet connections.
Okay.
My one broadband seems to be going weird, but this is my other broadband.
Okay, good.
Should
Yeah,
be
you're
fine.
back. Nice. So what is the occult?
So that started when I was 12. Like I say, I had sort of met people that had driven me that way.
Yeah.
And I started studying and training And my meditation training from martial arts that had taught me how to go into the etheric, out of my body. And I was like, this is pretty cool. What's next? Like, okay, so I can move around outside of my body and I can look at like real things in real time. Like, this is really interesting. And then I studied and I trained, and I was connected to these people that were sort of not spoon feeding me. And then I became obsessed with like old bookshops where I would go every day for like an hour or 45 minutes and look for old grimoires and look for old books that I could find, Middle English books, anything that was old that related to philosophy or spiritual science or occult or magic or anything. And I was just always looking for information and practicing. And my martial arts was intense. I was training about 30 hours a week. And meditating, and that was how I became a championship fighter, was by meditating. So I would practice zazen. So I'd go to a big like national championship bout and I'd go into the changing room and I'd be sitting doing zazen, the only one in there. And I'd go into a trance. And one of my mates was like, somebody would say like, dude, you're up. You got to go in. You got to go and fight. And I'd get up like a machine and I'd just walk to the ring. I just get in the ring and I'd just like go into a trance. And so like zazen was what I trained in. It was how I trained my martial arts.
And what is zazen?
Zazen is one-pointedness.
Okay.
You allow your mind to contract into a single point of focus and intention, and your concentration becomes unwavering, and there's no mind. It's just presence.
What is the point of focus on?
Sorry?
The point of focus when you bring your mind down.
Well, I'd been taught to focus originally in my hara, which is your etheric body, which is your sacral plexus. But I noticed at some point it didn't matter about that. It just mattered about that my mind was like unwavering, unmoving, just unmoving, unwavering. It was like water that was at rest. And then I didn't have to think. And then I could just be whatever I needed to be without having to decide.
So you mentioned this thing called the etheric, which I know you've talked about quite a bit because I've listened
Sorry,
to
I mentioned what?
The etheric.
The etheric, yes.
So, for our audience, what my understanding of the etheric. So there's like three levels to this. There's like the material, or bodies, the world. And then there's the etheric, which it seems like to me is the etheric is like these energetic templates that inform the material how to be. The etheric, the energetic template, is informed by the astral. And it's kind of like this this it comes down, it goes up. Um, is that is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, I would say, like, if you're looking at Pingala in Vedic cosmology, the Pingala is the etheric, relates to the electron and the sun and the shape and form. And the Kabbalah Sefirot would be containers that contain astral energy. And the etheric is like the shape that contains the energy, and the astral is the wild flowing substance that fills that. So they're sort of like yang and yin. Like, they can't exist independently of each other. Because the etheric is like snapshots. And the astral is like what connects the snapshots to make it a film.
Gotcha. Expressed by this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This stuff is a combination of astral and etheric together.
Yeah.
Like think of it as photographs.
Yeah.
And then a reel.
And then
photographs of the etheric.
Yeah. And our minds can access the etheric and the astral and have influence.
It's like our mind is the astral and the etheric. What we think is our mind is the astral working through the etheric. And what we think are thoughts are etheric emanations. And what we think are emotions are astral currents. And those astral currents, it's like trying to separate your thoughts from your emotions. You can't. Because what you're emotional about today is what you'll think about tomorrow. And what you think about tomorrow will make you emotional the next day. Like two oars. Like they're working in the same water. The one oar pushes you that way and the other oar pushes you that way. But they're working sort of, because that oar pushed you this way, now the other oar has to push you that way to compensate.
Yeah.
And then that's one has to compensate and compensate. So they work like two pedals of a bicycle.
Yeah. Now, with the Zazen, the meditation.
Zazen. Yeah.
Zazen.
The word Zen comes from Zazen.
Gotcha. So that's it. Is that like a balancing of the etheric and the astral, so that there's like no noise, there's no thought or emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that you can enter the arena and simply just
not think or feel.
Right. Just be and just do the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, what was I listening? I think it might have had to do, maybe it was that Instagram reel that I sent you with that gentleman.
The one I confused.
Yeah.
I watched some other reel with some guy talking about, and I was like,
what?
I commented, and you were like, did we watch the same reel? And I clicked it again, and it was a different reel. I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense.
Yeah, that was funny. I was like, this is a stretch. I gotta watch this again. But
this happens to me a lot with Instagram when I follow links. They show me other stuff. Isn't that weird? You click on one link and they'll show you different content.
Yeah. But it really made me think about, like two guys standing there, with samurai swords, about to go at it. And for one, it's just like, it's a pretty brutal way to die, you know, to get cut up. And I was just thinking about that no mind principle, and just going for it. And I was trying to imagine like what that would actually look like. It's pretty incredible.
I remember that.
You remember doing this sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember how I died.
Yeah. How'd you die?
I was cut in half.
That's unpleasant.
It wasn't.
How so? Why not?
I wasn't afraid.
Hmm.
I was in no mind.
Yeah. Was it a duel?
All my men were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the last one standing. And the whole army surrounded me. And there's like rules to how this works. I was a general. They were my men. And so I had to there was etiquette to it. So we were all fighting and I was like dropping them, 2, 3 at a time. And there were bodies everywhere. And then the fighting stopped and they surrounded me because I was the general. And my lord and his daughter, who I was in love with, and his family I was the last bastion of defense before they could get from here into their place. And then they came at me like one at a time. And I'd like put this one down, and then the next one, put this one down. And the other general was saying, okay, your turn. And he'd come and I'd put him down, and your turn, and I'd put him down, and your turn, and I'd put him down. And then there were bodies everywhere. I don't know how many bodies there were, and it went on and on and on for long. Because I was a blade master, so I was pretty good at this. And in the end, one of them got me. One of their what do you call them, champions? Because only a champion can slay a champion. Like there's rules and etiquette to how this worked. So they wouldn't all come at me at once and just cut me down or shoot me with arrows. I had to have a warrior's death. And so I had to be slayed in single combat. But like it went on and on and on and on. And one of them, I was obviously getting worn down as well, and stuff. Like there was only so long I could go on for, until I was gonna. But yeah, so it was an uppercut. He got me with an upper stroke. And I remember the euphoria when I passed. It was euphoric because I had honored, and I had done my duty, and there was honor. I felt honorable. I felt honored.
Yeah.
And the death that was given to me was an honor, and it was an honorable death.
Yeah.
Befitting of my station.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. I understand. Yeah. Cool.
I was different then.
Yeah.
It all made sense then. Thinking about it's a bit loopy. But anyway.
Maybe you were different.
Yeah.
Maybe you're the same. You're the same as you are now. You're just in a different. You're just life is different. You know what I mean? Maybe we never change.
Maybe to
Yeah.
some extent. I wasn't allowed to have her. We were in love.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to be with her because she was his daughter and I was his general. So I had to serve the family while being in love with her and put that out of the way and do my duty
Yeah.
and use the love that I had for her to serve them better.
Right.
That was like basically it.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like maybe a depth of love and service that's almost unrecognizable right now. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what what happened after what eventually you were done with school and did you go to college or
No,
university?
I sat my mom down when I was 15
Yeah.
and I explained to her, I said, I'm not going to go to university
Mhm.
and I'm not going to follow this path. My path is going to go down the road of the occult.
Okay.
Both her and her boyfriend laughed at me. They were like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not your life. I was like, that's what I'm going to do with my life. They were like, no, you like, this isn't how it works. And my headmaster had tried to, okay, so I went to the oldest Anglo-Saxon school in South Africa.
Okay.
And our headmaster, who was a high Freemason, used to teach one class to all the students, arithmetic. And of course, I was the best arithmetist in the school. So he had a lot of respect for me, even though I was the biggest rebel in school. But I had like done stuff in the school. Obviously, they had to. I hospitalized the boy in the boxing ring because they forced me to box, and I said I can't box with these kids in a gym class. I said I can't box with them. I said, sir, you may as well get in the ring with me. He was a big guy. He was like 6'2".
Wait a minute.
I
Wait a
said,
minute.
you get in the ring.
In your school, you had like mandatory boxing.
It was an Anglo-Saxon all-boys school,
That's
jock
pretty
rugby
cool.
school.
That's pretty cool.
And it was just one of the exercises in gym.
Gotcha.
We used to have gym tests every like 3 months, fitness.
Wow.
And I was like 99.8% of fitness of all the children in South Africa of my age group. So I was in that 0.2% bracket. And they used to test us for how many times you can climb the rope, how many press ups you can do, how many sit ups you can do, how fast you run the 100 meters, how fast you run the 50, 75 meters, how fast you run 2 kilometers, how fast you run the 1,000 meters, how fast you swim, like suppleness. Or they used to test us for everything.
Yeah.
How many pull ups you can do, how many chin ups you can do, how far you can row, what your rowing distance is in so many minutes, and all of that. They had an ergo that they tested us with. And so it was an Anglo-Saxon school. And so, yeah, I mean, my headmaster liked me, even though I was trouble. I didn't want to box. I was like 16. I said, sir, you can't put me in the ring with these kids. I'm gonna hospitalize them.
Yeah.
And he laughed. I said, seriously, sir, you should box with me. I'll give you a hiding. He was a big guy. He laughed because he didn't know. But he forced me to get in the ring. So he rang the bell, and like half a second later, there was a boy on the ground unconscious. And then he wouldn't wake up. Took them a long time to wake him up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had to go to to have a brain scan because he had been unconscious for like quite a while. And then they banned boxing. So I was the reason boxing was banned from the high school.
Yeah.
But when I was 15, 16, the seniors, like the 18, 19-year-olds, 18, you know, they used to do initiations to the standard sixes, the young, when they came in. And I'd stop that. Because I went into their senior change room and I'd like basically said, like, I will take any of you on. I will take you all on now. Come. I stood in the middle of the change room. Big guy got up and I sort of clipped him on the ear twice, like on each ear. And I was like, there's not any of you here that can stand against me in a fight. Not here and no ways in the street. You all know it. Because I had a reputation by that stage as being a street fighter.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who I was. My name was quite well known in Cape Town. Like if girls had problems with guys giving them a hard time, I would tell them, just tell them Frank said they better leave you alone.
Yeah.
And like people knew who I was because reputation precedes you.
Yeah.
And sorry.
No worries.
And so I banned that. So I think my headmaster had a lot of respect for me because he obviously realized that I was like, I don't know, a leader or whatever. Yeah. And like even the older boys would look up to me or would listen to me because I was basically done. And I'd said to them, if I catch any of you messing with any of the younger boys again, I swear to God, if I don't hospitalize you in school, I will catch you out of school and I will beat the living shit out of you. And all of you know you don't want to face me. So that was the end of all of that initiation crap at Sachs. And because they had taken these little like 11, 12-year-olds and taken off their pants and made them stand in, they had like windows, like huge sash windows. And there was a space between the huge sash windows and they made them stand between the huge sash windows and the outside
You're muted. You hit the mute. There you
go. I'm asking my son why he's making a noise disturbing my show.
Gotcha.
He's crying. Just give me a second.
Yeah, go take care of it.
Good night, Joshua. I love you more than anything in the world. What's the problem? No. Okay, well then go and get into bed and don't disturb me again. No. I love you more than anything. Josh, I'm in the show.
Leave the door open when I say good morning.
Good night, my darling. I will. I'll open it in the morning. I promise. That was his mother phoning me.
Oh, okay.
And he was crying. It's drama with his mother.
Yeah.
I'm continually having to take her to task. I don't know what was going on. But it's like before bedtime. Yeah. And she's just not very good at managing him. So, yeah. My headmaster approached me when I was 16.
Yeah.
And he said to me, we did these IQ tests. And he said to me, you had slipped through the system. He pulled me into his office, had a meeting with me. He said to me, you slipped through the system. He said, I should have known by your arithmetic skill. And he said, now, this is something that teachers will tell students, but in your case, it's uniquely true. You can be anything you want to be. I've seen your test results. You can be a scientist. You can be a mathematician. You can be a artist. You can be a writer. You can be, you know. And he said to me, the Old Boys Foundation, which is an extension of the Freemasonic Order, as it had been explained to us when we came to Sachs. He explained to me that The Old Boys Foundation is an extension of the Freemasonic Order. And we have powerful connections all around the world. And then he gave me a list of names of people who had been CEOs of big corporations and politicians and presidents and everything. And he said, you have a future in this country. We could see you in politics one day. Because one of the standard heads had started me doing public speaking, and I really didn't give a damn what anybody thought. So I could jump up on a stage and speak because I just didn't care. Like I didn't care what anybody thought. It's like, so what? Like, what you think is what you think, but what you can do about it is another thing. What's my attitude? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
End of the day, you all know who's the boss here. So, he had basically offered me, he said to me, you drop Xhosa and you start Latin. And I said, but sir, like there's 2 years left, less than 2 years. There's 1 year and 3/4 of a year left, or 1 2/3 of a year left until my finals. He said, no, for you, it'll be easy. He said, you just you'll be able to do it easily. We've seen your language skill set. That's what he said. Obviously, we had done these IQ tests, and I didn't know I'd done well. I just didn't care. I just went tick, 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 got bored, closed it, and walked out. So I walked out halfway through the IQ test, having apparently scored really high. And so that's what brought his attention to me, was that I had done it so fast, because I just didn't care whether the answers were right. They didn't tell us it was an IQ test. They said it was an orientation, helping you figure out your career, a questionnaire. I was like, this is a lot of nonsense. I was just like, tick, 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 you know. So anyway, but it seemed like an IQ test when I was doing it, and I realized, no, these questions, I'm not enjoying this. So anyway, he offered to me, and I said to him, "Sir, I will be the one on the street standing against you guys. I will not be with you. I won't be taking Latin, sir."
What did you know about? I mean, what did you know about Freemasonry at that point? That you would say something like that, or was it intuitive?
I knew that they were involved in the occult. I knew that he was a Freemason. I knew that he had psychic abilities that he was secretive about. I knew that he had been trained in magic. I used to come and I used to show my other friends to come to the school at night, and I used to show them, like, okay, like it's a special night tonight. There's an alignment with the moon, and it's a solstice. Watch. And they'd do a procession wearing funny garments. The headmaster and certain old boys foundation, and they'd do a procession wearing all of this paraphernalia with these staves and funny headdresses and stuff into the old boys foundation room, where none of us were allowed except for one boy that was, he happened to be gay, even though it wasn't open. Him and I had spoken openly, and there had been stuff happened to him with male teachers in the boarding house. He was the only one that was allowed in with them, and I'd been trying to get him to spill the beans, because there was a secret room underneath our Olympic swimming pool where they had a special door that nobody ever went in, but they used to, on these special occasions, go in procession down this room, and we used to climb into trees and look to see where they were going into this building, and they would go into this place, and they were doing some kind of rituals. And I was aware of this because I used to spend a lot of time on the mountain, and I'd noticed that these processions of these people would come up into the woods, and they would make circles and chant. And I'd scanned them with my ESP, and I realized they were like men in suits with like important jobs. And I was like, that's very weird. So I'd been aware of this for quite a long time prior to this. And I'd realized, I knew who the Golden Dawn was. I knew what Rosicrucianism was. And I'd put 2 and 2 together, that the Freemasons were basically somehow these Rosicrucian magicians. So that's what I knew. I didn't know much.
Yeah.
But I knew that they were like up to something.
What do you think the significance, the Anglo-Saxon significance was for the school.
The tribe of Dan.
What?
The tribe of Dan.
The tribe of Dan.
Dan, yeah. London.
Okay.
And basically, this was what made British Empire.
The internet gremlins are attacking us.
Did you not hear me?
No, I didn't.
Let me reset my internet onto the other one,
Yeah.
because my other internet is actually better.
Yeah, no worries.
So it's going to take a couple of seconds.
That's okay. I'm gonna. I'll be right back. Okay, I'll be right back.
There we go. So yeah, I was aware that there was this connection with the Masons and the Rosicrucians, and I'd been studying magic for some years already, and practicing every day, and that had basically given me the insight to what was going on. And we used to have to play the last post every day at our high school, which was a celebration of all the people that had passed in the war, and it seemed like some kind of a dark ritual to me. So every day we had to stand to the attention twice, and during school day, to celebrate those that had been sacrificed in the war. And to me, that seemed like a black magic ritual of human sacrifice. So I was aware that there was something very sinister going on, and I knew that the government was not trustworthy, and I knew that the financial system was wrong, and I knew that everything in the world was a bit upside down and back to front, and that things weren't right, and that there was something sinister going on. I didn't understand the dynamics of how it was run, but my headmaster had explained to me that how the Old Boys Foundation was recruiting into the Masons, and how they basically were controlling things, and how I could have had a seat at the table.
You mentioned you were practicing magic. What were you doing? What kind of daily practice? What did that involve?
It would involve energy work, structuring my etheric body,
Okay.
and empowering the etheric body, training it, and structuring space around me, and working with, the pentagram, invocation and evocation, and meditation,
Mhm.
and training with elemental energies, learning to sense them, learning to see them, learning to channel them.
So it seems like you were definitely what they were looking for as far as candidates for the club.
Well, I was a rebel.
Yeah.
They had no idea what they were getting into.
Yeah. Gosh.
They thought they could control me with a carrot. They were,
Right.
and part of the deal that he offered me was a free law degree
Right.
at Rhodes University.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that would have cost a lot of money. They said, like the Old Boys Foundation will pay for everything. That's what he said to me. He said, we'll send you on public speaking courses. We'll start arranging for you to go around the country and do public speaking in all the schools now while you're in your high school years, and get you trained up and prepped up for speaking to crowds. And this was like, he basically laid it out to me. This is what all you got to do is just learn to toe the line.
Whose line?
And I was, hey,
Whose line?
conform.
The what?
Their line. Conform.
So where does this? Where does that go?
But I understand
Like,
how weird this is. I used to get cuts almost every day. I used to get cuts 3 times a week.
cuts.
To have a headmaster come to you when you're the biggest rebel in your high school. And I used to get cuts from all of and they used to love me because I'd come and I'd tell them a joke. I'd be telling them a joke while they're giving me cuts and they're laughing.
Is that like what is that, like a whipping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was supposed to
So
go to detention all the time and I never went. I refused.
yeah.
I refused
So
to go
it's
to
like,
detention, so I'd get cuts.
so it's like a humiliation ritual.
No, it's pain.
Okay.
Like sometimes my butt would bleed a little.
Mhm.
But I saw it as like training to make me stronger.
Right.
Pain threshold, meditation, focus. You know
And
how
you would
like the
be,
Christians whip themselves?
yeah, I've seen that also in different cultures.
I used my teachers to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. So you sat your mom down and her boyfriend, and you told them that you were going to go to university, you were going to study the occult at 15. So after you graduated your school and you didn't go to university, what'd you do?
Okay, so backtracking, I had my first business when I was really young,
Okay,
and I earned a lot of money.
nice. What'd
I
you
must have
do?
been about 8 or 9. I was organized. On a Saturday morning, I would wash 6, 7 properties of cars, some of them 2 cars. By today's standards, I'd be earning $300 or $400 in the morning on a Saturday when I was 8.
Wow.
In terms of buying power,
Yeah.
I had enough money and then I would take that money and I'd go and learn to play pool. And when I was like 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, I used to take people's money on the pool tables as well.
You were a pool hall
Men.
hustler.
I was a bit of a fool hustler when I was a kid because I was a kid, so they never saw it coming.
Yeah.
And I'd walk in and I'd put like a big amount of money on the table and they'd be like, no, I can't play. I'd say, okay. And I'd put more money on the table, double. And I'd say, like, winner takes it. And then I'd let them win and then I'd make them double it. And so we're playing for like the equivalent of like, rands were very different in those days, but like maybe the equivalent of like $50, $100 with like an 8, 9-year-old kid. And then I'd take that money. Then I'd go to the next place and do the same thing. Like I was really cheeky.
Nice.
I was good at pool though. So yeah, that was a business that I did when I was young, and I made a lot of money to the point where my junior school had contacted my parents thinking that I was stealing money because I would buy
Really?
all the children lunch. I'd go to the lunch tuck shop and I'd buy like 40 kids lunch. All the children that didn't have lunch money, I'd buy them all lunch. Like, And the teachers would be like, that's for them, that's for them, that's for them, that's for that one for that one. What do you want? That's for that one. And I'd buy everybody lunch. I'd buy myself lunch, and then I'd open up my wallet and I'd have like this big wad of notes, and the tuck shop ladies would be staring at me because I've got this huge bill. So they thought I was stealing money.
Yeah.
So they like contacted my mom, and my mom was like, no, he's not stealing money. And then she realized, oh, so when you go off with those buckets and things, like what's going on? And then she realized that I was going around all of our blocks servicing everybody's car, and everybody knew me, and I was making good money. Then when I was 15, I had a false ID because I used to sell false IDs at school to make money. And just give me a second while I quickly make sure that
Yeah, you're a little blurry and delayed on my end, but it's working.
am I delayed at the moment?
It's a little delayed.
Okay. I need to delete something. How long have we been on? Okay, we've got a few minutes before I have to delete something. So when I was 15, I was selling false IDs at school for children to go clubbing. 14 and 15, student cards and this and that. I was having them made up and selling them to people. And then I ended up going into the police station to get affidavits to substantiate my identification.
What does that mean?
I fooled the police into giving me a authentic ID when I was 15 that said I was 18.
Why'd you do that?
I was a good bullshitter.
Okay. So you convinced the police that you were 18?
Look, my dad helped me.
Okay.
I got my dad to help me. Me and my dad were really, really close. And then I got a job, and I was working in a restaurant as a waiter when I was 15, even though I wasn't old enough to work there. Nobody knew I was underage, but I looked a bit underage.
You got the idea to get a job.
I got the idea to go clubbing and partying, but also to get a job.
Okay.
And so I was working as a waiter. Nobody knew I was working. So I'd always been working in restaurants then after that. And when I was 16, I was still working in restaurants, like legitimately. And 17 and 18. And when I left high school, I was the youngest registered restaurant manager in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
I was running a big restaurant when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
Big restaurant where I had like 33, 34 staff that I had to manage.
Yeah.
Not just me. I mean, it was different shifts, different managers. We were split shifts. But so I trained to be a restaurant manager. But it turned out not to be for me. It was just it was stressful. I didn't enjoy it. I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. I was just way too young to do that job as well. It was difficult managing people that were like 30 years old, 28 years old, and I was the boss, and I was just a youngster.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I've worked in a bunch of different jobs. I never really enjoyed it that much. Well, what I enjoyed was the interaction with the customers. It was always really fun, because new people would come in, and you'd serve them and kind of get to know them a little bit. And I was always I always had a fantastic relationship with customers. But it was always the fucking staff. The other people, because I was always an outsider, and there'd be these little cults of personality or cliques or whatever, and it's just ridiculous. But yeah, I really
used to help
enjoyed.
everybody.
What's that?
I just used to help everybody.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. Bitchy little clans.
Everybody's got their ego. So, so what'd you do after restaurants?
I wasn't earning as much money as a manager as what I did on the floor.
Okay.
So after that, I went to work in the waterfront where I could earn premium money, and I earned really good money because I was good. My tips were good. I worked in premium places
Okay.
in the
Gotcha.
waterfront Cape Town, and it's like a tipping culture. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like your states is a tipping culture. So I would make good money, and then I decided my training got to the point where I didn't want to handle money anymore.
What do you
I
mean?
didn't want to do any of this nonsense. So I started busking.
What do you mean you're training?
My psychic, spiritual, occult training got to a point where I was like opening up more and more and more and more. And I was like, well, this environment isn't working for me. And then I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to walk into town and busk. And the universe aligned for me. And somebody was like, look, we've got this like yacht in the waterfront, and we need someone we can trust to stay on it and look after it for us, because we can't just have anyone on the yacht, you know, because there's expensive things on the yacht and bits and pieces. Yachts aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And so I was like on it. I was like, yeah, I'll stay there. And then I was staying on this yacht, and I realized, well, I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to do anything. And so I would just go and busk and buy like vegetables and fruits and stuff and share them with the street kids in the town, in Cape Town.
Yeah. What did you play?
And hey,
What did you play?
guitar and vocals. And sometimes drum, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
But at that time, it was guitar and vocals.
Yeah.
And I would just go and write songs, sit down and channel songs and write songs and just play. And the more and more super conscious I got, the more I started feeling this yearning for India. Like I felt like I had reached, I'd learned what I could from the Western occult. And I'd realized that all of these men in all of them, and I'd been into different organizations where I'd sort of found myself in the inner circle. And they were all like similar kind of occult knowledge, institutions, whatever you want to call them. Like the inner circle is secretive. The outer circle will be like something else. Might even be fronting as a kind of a religious organization, but in the inner circle, it's occult knowledge and teachings. And then there's like a secret circle within the circle where you get like initiated into the inner circle. And then I realized that I'd sort of felt like I'd got what I could get from Western occult. And it was time for me to get more. And I needed to go to India. And the yearning started. And then somebody was like, look, my friend, he had this yacht in Canada that was like, it was a antique 91-foot schooner from the pre-Second World War. And it was worth like 20 million or something ridiculous. And he couldn't find anyone that he could trust enough to go onto the yacht, look after it. Because like each piece of the yacht would be worth like 100K or something.
Sure.
Like if somebody wasn't ethical, they'd make a lot of money off of it. Like just take this piece and that piece and sell it and go and buy a property or something. I don't know. So anyway, it was like a really special, it was a beautiful yacht.
Yeah.
The Mephisto, beautiful yacht. That was in Halifax.
Yeah.
It was called Mephisto, which is a hectic name. It's like the name for the devil or something. Which I was like, that's anyway, I wasn't concerned because I wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
So and he paid me. He paid me to go there. I was like, oh, I don't need to be paid. He said, no, I'll pay you. I'll pay you $2,000 a month just to fly out there and look after the yacht. I was like,
yeah.
and which was a lot of
Good deal.
money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good deal.
Yeah. And well, it was supposed to be a month. It ended up being more than a month. I don't know if it was 2 months. All my expenses and everything were paid, but there was money on this boat. There was a lot of money on this boat. A lot of money on this boat. It was like, fuck, what was I supposed to do? All this money on this boat. Like, I had to like pack it into like cupboards and stuff. And they had used this boat to take something under the boat into Canada. And the boat was standing there because they're done with the boat now. So he just didn't want to have to worry about the boat. Because it was such a high profile boat, no one looked at the boat. You gotta understand how these things work.
Sure.
So these people were like big into psychedelics,
Oh,
lysergic acid and stuff.
Yeah.
So I realized, okay, it's like, was there anything on the boat? No. There was like a ball of charis bigger than my fist on the
Ball
boat
of
for
what?
me to enjoy. A ball of hash bigger than my fist.
Oh,
That was
damn.
for me. Because
Wow.
I was like, well, if I'm going out there, what am I going to have to smoke? He like, so he made sure there was a big ball of ash waiting for me on the boat, like bigger than my fist, because I liked to toke when I was young, you know. And so yeah, I came back to South Africa for a while, and then my mom was like, "You should go to Israel." She kept talking about Israel, and I thought, you know what? There aren't any direct flights to South Africa. I'm going to go to the UK, but it's not season for the UK yet. I'm going to pop into Israel for a while. There must be a reason why Israel keeps coming up. And then I met Philippe. Oh, the second day I was in Israel. Like
Okay.
ex-teacher of Kabbalah from the Hebrew University.
Okay.
And he was a farmer in this biodynamic, separate little community of biodynamic farming of olives.
Nice.
Yeah, in
What
this
does
unique place.
biodynamic mean?
Biodynamic means like you don't pick anything from the trees.
Okay.
Like they fall at the right time when you catch them. You use nothing. It's like it's organic on steroids.
Hmm.
Like imagine that, like as organic, the way they used to farm 1,000 years ago.
Okay. Nice.
With total using the knowledge of the Kabbalah in your farming as well. Applying occult to farming.
Okay.
So I was looking off the Chofok Ziv, which is like in the north, about 7 kilometers from Naharia, and developed a relationship with the faculty of Kabbalah from the Hebrew University. They used to come and spend the weekend with me and talk to me about the Kabbalah. And so I stayed there for like a year and a half because
Now,
it was really interesting.
what is the Kabbalah?
Well, the Kabbalah is the foundation of Western occultism, but that's Hermetic Kabbalah, which I trained in. But these guys were practicing Jewish Kabbalah, which is different Kabbalah.
Okay.
So I was curious, and they were curious because I had enhanced sensitivity.
Yeah.
They wanted to talk to me about things like my experiences, and we ended up getting into these huge discussions about the Kabbalah. And so they would come and spend the weekend with me on Chofak Ziv, like one at a time.
Yeah.
And so I got to know the faculty of the Kabbalah from the Hebrew University.
Nice.
Which
Was
pretty
this
cool.
like where you were staying? Is that what's called a kibbutz?
No.
No.
It was Chofak Ziv. It was a private beach that was mandated by Philippe. And Philippe and Eli Avivi were good friends, and Eli Avivi was like the oldest activist in Israel. So I also got to know like all the old activists from the 60s who had basically had huge. These were the guys. Eli Avivi was the reason the kibbutzes had existed. He started the first thing that became kibbutz. And he was a friend of Philip's. Old guy, really funny guy. He always had young girls around him. Crazy guy. real like head trip, but also obviously an occult thinker.
Are these what you would are these Zion what you call Zionists?
No.
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 Okay.
No. Philip was not a Zionist. He was a like a old school Jew,
Okay.
you could say. But he was a like a master of Kabbalah, and he used to teach Kabbalah in Hebrew University. So a lot of rabbis would have been taught by these guys.
Gotcha.
And so anyway, after Israel, I was being drawn, and from there, I ended up going to UK for a short period of time, where I ended up sort of getting connected with conscious events and conscious partying, and people doing interesting kinds of projects. And I just want to see the time here. I think I'm going to have to delete one of those other streams. But before I do that, I'm going to download it. Download it. You ever see the download coming? Download it. Okay, there we go. So, excuse me for being so rude, streaming.
No worries.
So, yeah.
Well, before we get to the UK, I want to go back to Israel. And you know, what did you gain from being there?
Well, I was practicing my occult arts.
Yeah.
And I was learning with the premier masters in Israel. So it was like a great honor. Okay. I was living on Chofak Ziv.
Yeah.
And I got connected to alternative groups of people, younger people as well. Like I'd go and stay naked in Metsugai Dargot, for example, nudist colony where we would all just go and meditate and have discourse and spirituality and stuff, and a lot of activists in the UK, in Israel as well, and fell in love with the place, the energy. I did enjoy my time in Israel, I'll be honest. I loved the deserts.
Yeah.
I loved the Gaza. I hitchhiked through that in that days, maybe it wasn't as bad as now. I was able to hitchhike through and go and meet the people in the Arab world, and they were so lovely. And you know, the Bedouinites were really lovely people, like caravans moving around. And I was on Chofak Ziv, which was a private beach, which was my beach. If you speak to any Israeli person, you ask them about Chofak Ziv, they'll say it's the best place, most special place in the whole of Israel. That was my beach.
Yeah.
That beach called Chofak Ziv was mine.
Nice.
So it wasn't running as a business, even though it was supposed to. So people could come in there and I would take donations, but only if I wanted them there, if I thought the energy was right for the place. I was really fussy.
Wait, what? You would take? What do you mean you would take donations?
Well, it's a beach.
Yeah,
it's a private beach,
right?
And in the summer we'd be open and people would be able to come there, and I would just be there making sure that everything was okay.
Okay.
You know, and there was a Rambo who came to live there with me, a big dog, beautiful dog, fell in love with him. And in summer I'd open and people could come, but then I'd get volunteers to come stay with me. In summer I had loads of girls come to live there with me. Israeli girls, European girls, Swedish girls. So we'd have like these bonfires on the beach, and like basically it was a bit of a naked beach because I was naked a lot of the time. Private beach. It's a gate. I lock it. I got a key. And
Very
there's a lot of
nice.
driftwood coming out of the sea. So like my volunteers would come there and we'd have like little events there and stuff. And it was like pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was sort of like the manager of the beach in a sense, I suppose you could say.
Yeah. Are you in communication? I imagine you're still in communication with entities and beings at this point.
When I have to,
Yeah.
I take action. In terms of my own guides, it shifted more into like ancestral recognition and deeper parts of my lineage behind me, if that makes sense. Other beings, other entities, they tend to be they're a bit scared of me because I can make them do whatever I want them to do.
So from that one experience, that experience you had years and years and years ago, when you put that entity through a portal or around the Ouija board. At this point, now that you've had much more education and have been practicing through all these years, you're saying that you're not really being messed with. And
other people come to me when they're being messed with, and then I deal with them. I mean, I help. Like if people have polterkinetic things in their homes, then they can come to me to fix their homes.
Was that happening when you were in Israel?
No, this is just something I do now.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's like a whole range of services, but that's like I am the local Ghostbuster.
Yeah. Well, I got one question I came to is that
And I don't have one of those fancy packs.
Yeah.
I've got like charcoal and incense and crystals and sage.
I guess I'm not sure what I'm asking, but it's like, are the entities different in Israel than they are in South Africa?
Not really.
Yeah.
Because we've got a heritage that we're tapping into. And time and space has very little relevancy other than what you. But in fundamental terms, no. The same in India. In fundamental terms, no. I mean, there'll be different kinds of wherever you go, right? Like you could go there and there's something there, and then you'll tune in and there's a shadow or an echo and something bad happened and there's some kind of a being stuck here because of stuff that's happened, and in the past there's been this that's happened, so it's caused this. And so where there's been like violent crimes or bad things done, there'll be other beings that'll come there and be attracted to that, and they'll get stuck on that area, and they'll be able to use that area and people to siphon off of them, right? They'll create like little, so you'll get that in different places, and it's a similar kind of a thing all around the world where how can I put it? We anthropomorphize everything that we come in contact with. So our perception of reality is still going to be what we're carrying within us, wherever we go. And the fundamental things might be somewhat different, but there's a sameness everywhere.
Yeah.
Like when you connect with a being and you're not really speaking a word's language, if that makes sense.
you mentioned something to do with ancestors.
Yeah, ancestral lineage. My father, he's an anchor.
What does that mean?
My father's an anchor. He gave me a baton when he passed. When I went to Nepal, my father passed. So I'd come from England a little while, and then I went to Nepal, and I was preparing myself to give up everything and go and climb the mountains with nothing. And I was preparing myself for this. And I had like next to nothing, and I was like getting rid of every last possession that I had. And I was ready to go up into the jungles with nothing. And I saw my father pass. And then he came to me, and he spent 3 days with me. And in the communion with my father for 3 days. I mean, he passed away in Cape Town, but he came to me, his soul. While he came to give me darshan. Think of it like in terms like that somehow. And I got darshan with my father. It was like a thing. And he opened a door for me. And he gave me a baton, like a psychic thing, like a heavy thing that I had to carry now in my life. I was like, ooh, give me this heavy baton to carry. And then he went. And that was like a staff that relates to my chain of what came before me. If that makes any sense to you.
Sure. Yeah.
And then that shook me. That shook my whole world. I was like, wow, that shook my whole world. Everything was so clear and so simple. My direction was, and then my father passed away. And then I had confusion about where the path leads me forwards. And so I went deep into meditation, and my heart was telling me, this is not the place for you. You want to be in India. I was like, I was outside of the Kathmandu Valley. I fell in love with that. So I always go back there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful jungles up there outside of the valley. And
Franklin.
Yeah.
So before we get to India, because I do want to get to India, was your activism in the UK before India?
No, much later.
Much later. Okay, cool.
Although,
yeah,
I had been part of activism in a minor way. Like a friend of mine had been connected to the Bushmen of Namibia. And so I used to go and play drums, and a few of us used to go and do performances to raise money to send to the Bushmen so they could win a court case to get their land back in Namibia.
Okay, cool.
So that kind of stuff I did, and I was part of. And
Nice.
I would use my arts and my music to help raise money for causes.
Yeah.
Like a minor role in activism in those days, to be when I was in the UK.
That's beautiful. Well, I think we should pause here because I can hear a little one, and it's probably lunchtime. I think. Well, how long have we been going on? 2 hours. So.
Yeah, we're reaching the 2 hour point.
Okay, perfect. I think that's good. I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah, I've got 3 minutes of download time. This recording is going to get lost.
What do you mean?
I just noticed because I started recording. Remember, I did this thing earlier. Okay, now it says 3 minutes left. So it's 5.576, 3.7 gigabytes of 4.4 gigabytes downloaded. I've got to delete something
Okay.
in order to make this available. So I might just, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might just pause the recording. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause the recording.
Okay.
And then I'm going to end the recording. Big love to you, dear
All right.
brother.
Yeah,
I hope you're
that was
having
really
an
good talking to you.
absolute.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, man. I
we'll-
hope she's good. I hope your wife's good.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to add this part on. I'm going to edit. I'm just going to cut it short at the point
Yeah,
where you
that's-
said.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Big love. Will it be next Sunday, or are you not sure
Yeah.
timing?
Yeah, let's keep on going for Sundays.
Okay, brother. And maybe at some point we can stop talking about me. We can start talking about things.
Maybe we might get to that. We got a long ways to go.
Well, big love to you, dear brother.
All right.
Look, my mother, my poor mother. It's very hard for her. Like stuff that came up in our last discussion is very intimate. And I'm very close to my mom.
Yeah.
And she saw the video and it hit a note. She
Really?
still can't come to terms with stuff that happened when I was young. My dad taking me from her and the court case and her losing. And yeah, she was in a car accident and she was in a coma. So she forgot, I don't know, don't know what happened, but she doesn't seem to remember everything from the childhood, anything really. But she did go through a windscreen of a car after my dad took me. I believed, he said to me he thought she was dead, but it turns out she wasn't. She was just in a coma. He had heard she was in a coma for some weeks, but she came out of the coma anyway and got reconstructive surgery and everything. So it's been quite tricky for my mom. Like I'm just speaking openly. I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, It is what it is. The truth is what the truth is. And it's probably something she needs to face up to before she leaves this world. So it's probably healthy.
Yeah. Sure.
Anyway, big love to you, dear brother.
Yep. You as well.
You have a good day.
Okay, you too.
Much love. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.